Hello everyone, welcome once again to Agent Carter Discussions. I am Captain Logan, and with me tonight is the entire Agent Carter panel. We have Dan Torrey.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
It's the Real Manos.
What's happening?
And it's also the real Steve Baxi.
Hi, everybody.
Tonight we're talking about the Blitzkrieg button. Very excited about this episode. There have been a lot of talk about whether or not we were going to see Howard Stark very much in the show, and now suddenly he's back, and not only back, but prominently featured. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it and talk about it. If you are watching the regular video, the discussion video, after we recorded live, thanks a lot for clicking on the video and being here with us. We're going to be conversing with our live internet audience. And here we go, beginning this time with Steve Baxi. Let's mix it up a little bit. Steve, what'd you think of this one? Give me a best moment and a worst moment.
Okay, so pretending for a second that this show was 26 episodes and it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this is the episode we would have gotten at the mid-season finale. This show is moving really quickly, and I think part of that's because it's only a miniseries, at least so far. I like, you mentioned Howard Stark earlier. I love Howard Stark in this. I thought he was fantastic. His actor, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's great. They do a lot of those cutaway gags where he disappears and then just comes out of a woman's room, but it never got old. It was always funny for some reason. And it's just the way he plays it, the way that everyone just kind of assumes he's not Howard Stark, which is a little cartoony, but it works for what they're doing in the 1940s. I think my best moments are my general thoughts on this episode. My best moment was when Peggy confronted Howard about having Steve's blood in that orb. And they had that talk about ceilings placed on you based on your sex or your social class or your race, and then you have to lie to get past that, and Peggy having to deal with the fact that she's doing basically Howard Stark's corporate espionage for him. I thought that was magnificent. It really solidifies everything we've been talking about for the first 3 episodes. My worst moment is as a little bit Howard Stark related. It's what Kat mentioned in the first or second episode with that house. That whole thing with Peggy trying to dance around that woman and get Howard into her room felt a little bit unnecessary. It was funny. It was fine. It was just kind of cheap drama for
It's contrived.
Humor.
It's just ultra contrived.
Yeah, it's not really that great. But everything else I thought was fantastic. This is probably my favorite episode so far.
And now we move on to general thoughts from the Real Manos. Manos, best moment, worst moment, and what you thought of this episode overall.
Well, best moment, obviously, for me is Dottie's little surprise for us, which, for me, really did surprise me. I mean, sometimes when I watch these shows, I watch them as a writer, so you try to think ahead, and a lot of times you're unfortunately right. But this one completely caught me off guard with that reveal. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, that's opening the book not only further in this series, but probably in the Marvel Universe, because that just some random thing going on. I think that's going to lead us to some very big things. Worst moment, I don't think I have one. I just really enjoyed this episode. I understand with the sort of sitcom-y moment with her breaking in with that woman. But I don't think that was played too long, so it didn't bother me as much, but I do get that.
Yeah, I don't think it was badly done, Manos. I think what Steve and I are mostly reacting to is just the way it was set up in the first place in the pilot. Because I've been waiting for that to become a source of drama, and I actually think that it's handled about the best and most entertaining way possible. Okay, so she's gonna be in a house with nothing but women, and they have these really strict rules, and she's not allowed to have men there. If we're going to play that up for comedy and as a dramatic thing, they did the best possible hilarious thing, which is put Howard Stark there. That's great. I mean, like, if you have to do it, that's the way to do it. So, yeah, I mean, they handled it in the best way possible, but I still think it's really easy. Dan!
I'm going to echo everything you guys said, pretty much. I really liked this one as well. Peggy lives in an episode of The Twilight Zone. I can't believe that a place like that existed.
Sadly,
insane. And all of that stuff was kind of funny, especially the stuff with Howard. I really liked Howard Stark in this episode. He was really funny, and I love the fact that Captain America and his legacy is becoming more intertwined in the plot, even more heavily than it was before. I love how This feels like a story that you don't want to miss in the Marvel Universe. It feels like it's going to be important and have repercussions for things moving forward, even though it takes place in the past. That's my favorite thing about it, other than what you guys have already said. Because the criticism we've had of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pretty often is, even though it tries to tie in with things, it doesn't really feel that consequential. It feels like filler that you don't necessarily need to, consume to get the full picture of the Marvel Universe. And not that show's like bad or anything. It just feels like kind of the B team that you don't necessarily need to watch all the time. But Peggy feels like a character that deserves her own movie, and I really, really like where the series is going so far.
Yeah, Dan, definitely the best thing about this episode is the Captain America stuff, and that this is still feeling like a direct sequel to that movie. When Peggy gets into, I think this is what, 8 episodes, so we're like at the midpoint already, and this is the perfect place to put her at the midpoint. So up to this point, she's been having to be like this double agent and go against her agency because they think that Howard Stark is a criminal, but she thinks she knows what's really going on and trusts him. And now she's starting to question having done all of that and realizing that maybe she's not upholding Captain America's values like she thought she was and like she wants to. That's a fantastic place to put her, right in the middle of this miniseries. I kind of feel like we're seeing a very organic character arc for her, and right in the middle like that. I mean, that's where the crux of your conflict ought to be. And she's starting to already have that opportunity for change and realize what's going on. So my favorite moment, I think, is her speech to Howard Stark when she finds out about Captain America's blood. That was really well handled, and I thought that was a really emotional scene. It was kind of sad seeing her stand there and go, I can trust. I love that line when she says, "I can trust the people who don't believe in me more than the people who do. The people who respect me more than the people who do." And she's right about that. Those people are at least honest with her. I think that's really interesting. I have been talking for a long time about the fascinating comparison contrast in the Marvel films so far between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And now we've got Peggy Carter as kind of a stand-in for Captain America, or at least trying to live up to that. She's kind of trying to play that role here, and then we have Howard Stark, the progenitor of Tony Stark, and we're still doing it, and that's really cool. So I'm really excited about that. When we go back and watch some of the Marvel films now, when you go back and watch like Iron Man 2, and you have the scene with Howard Stark and the hover car that's not quite working and stuff, that stuff's all going to feel so much more layered now because we have all this background, and I think that's really super exciting. I'm going to echo Steve's worst moment, and also tack one more on real quick, which is that whole scene where Thompson says he thinks that Peggy is hiding something, and then it turns out that he just means that she's fooling herself, that men will ever see her as an equal. I think that was really ultra forced. That's another one of those kind of easy TV drama things of like try to build some tension where the audience thinks that maybe he's figured something out about her, but it turns out that he hasn't really. And it was so routine that they didn't even take their time with it. He just immediately, he's like, I know you're hiding something, and then immediately tells us what it is with like no time to create any tension whatsoever. And I was like, typical TV stuff. And it jumps out at me because this show has so little of it. That's one of the very few things that I've seen here where I was like, that's a little unsophisticated for this show. But minor quibble, not a big deal. Ultimately, I'm with Steve. I think this is, or whoever said this is the best episode of the season so far. I think that it definitely is. And now we move on to some general discussion. Manos, take us any place.
Sure. I was pretty happy with the whole episode, actually, because this is a point in this series where maybe things would slow down a little bit. I'm certainly used to that with S.H.I.E.L.D., where we go a few solid good episodes at the beginning, and then it kind of like starts to ramble a little bit. That kind of isn't happening here. I think we hit a nice new plot point. God, that scene, you're right about that scene. I want to echo what you're saying about the scene where Peggy says she can actually trust the people who don't respect her more. I thought that was kind of, you're right, that was kind of heartbreaking, actually. Because, this is supposed to be a friend of hers, and she can't she can't trust him.
Yeah.
You know, at least she knows where she stands with those other agents who, and you know, she understands the status quo that you know she's kind of learned to live with. And I can, yeah, she's so frustrated through every episode. It's a little, you know, I kind of feel, you know, her frustration just watching this show, and you know how she has to like use. I don't know. God, it's so Marvel the way she uses people's feelings towards her to get away with stuff. You know, I've seen Peter Parker do that in the past, and I've seen certain other Marvel characters do that. And it's like, God, this just feels so effortless the way it's putting it through.
Well, and importantly, it's a compromise that she's not comfortable with.
Yeah. And also Howard Stark is just great in this. And, you know, he mirrors Tony, but it's not an imitation by the writers or the actor. It doesn't feel like they're just trying to do that, too. It's very comfortable in its own skin, and his performance as well. He is kind of a guy of his time. And, you know, Tony is... I'm just so happy it's not repeating the same thing. I mean, because Howard Stark, there's a lot of Howard Hughes in this character. So, you know, it's a wise use of that character.
Folks, we got about another 15 minutes left in this particular show. Let's go ahead and real quick go ahead and do some quotes and a couple other things. We'll get back to some general discussion. Dan, did you have a favorite quote?
Nothing jumps to mind off the top of my head. I didn't really write things down as I was watching it, but as always, I think the dialogue is pretty snappy.
Yeah.
I really liked the line you mentioned before when Peggy was walking on the street, when she was picking up the lunch order, when she was saying, at least the people that don't respect me are honest and I can trust them. That was really interesting. I forgot to mention my worst moment before.
Oh, sure.
And I think that scene that you mentioned earlier was great when they were kind of having that emotional outburst about Captain America's blood and stuff. Not that Howard Stark hadn't behaved in such a way where he would have got thrown in that building immediately anyway, but it struck me as kind of dumb that they were both screaming at the top of their lungs in the middle of a place where no men are supposed to be.
That's a really good point! Yeah, because that woman is...
Oh, they're being a little stupid right now, aren't they?
That woman sees it so much as her duty, right, to like make sure that these women aren't even remotely promiscuous, that you could see her like putting her ear up to the wall just randomly at any apartment at any time. Like, so they should be more careful. Yeah. You know, that's the thing that I was thinking of during this entire episode. You got all these girls that are promiscuous enough that Howard Stark can just walk in their room and immediately start having sex with them, and it makes me wonder why they would, of their own accord, live there. Like, that place must be really cheap.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea of these places. They were cheap, and these were people who didn't really know much about the area, so they were kind of... a lot of times feeling stuck with it.
Wow. Okay. All right. Because I was just like, nobody of their own accord. I feel like they're at boot camp or something. All right. Let's.
The 40s.
Yeah. Okay. Other quotes. Steve.
I didn't have many. I just had one line Howard Stark said when he says, "Since when has the U.S. military ever had a weapon they didn't use?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with Dan. I think the show is just fantastic with dialogue every week, so it's hard to just not write the entire script down.
Steve, you know what's really cool about that line, too? You go to the Avengers, and you look at the S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to weaponize the Tesseract, and I mean, that's pretty cool.
Iron Man as well. They try to weaponize everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Because remember, that's Captain America's big moral conundrum in Avengers is, can I trust these people? And then, of course, that leads into Winter Soldier. Yeah, exactly. Manos, quotes.
Dottie's line, hey, that's an automatic, isn't it? I want that. I totally thought she was dead in 1 second, because they built that assassin up pretty well. And then she does that sort of Black Widow-ish move on him. Like,
You know, as soon as she said that, I was like, "What is going on?" Is that an automatic? I want that. I was like, "What?"
I love when they come back from the commercial, and he's dead on the floor, and his face is facing the camera, and it's like this, yeah, I'm surprised too, folks. We're getting into predictions in a minute, right?
Well, we can bring stuff up like that here in a little bit if you want to. We generally
I'll hold off on predictions then.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we don't have like just a segment for it anymore, just for the sake of time. But yeah, let me throw some quotes out at you, and then you can do that. So I had a number of them actually. I liked it when Jarvis was like, "Pardon my language," and then he says, "Extortion." That was pretty funny.
The guy that responded to him didn't know what extortion meant either.
Yeah, that was great.
This is an extortion. This is a shakedown. It's like, yeah, that's the same thing.
That makes it even better. My favorite line from the whole episode, this was so throwaway, was Sousa. By the way, I like that the agents are getting enough screen time now that I remember who they are. Sousa, I walk into a diner. Okay, this isn't a joke. That was my favorite. I cried at that joke. That was so funny. That was pretty great. And then like Starks, you don't get to climb the American ladder without picking up some bad habit speech. Like I said, that whole scene was really well written. You're a man who says I love you while looking over a woman's shoulder into the mirror. Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. Manos, what's the prediction you want to bring up, man?
Well, I don't know. This is actually I've read people talk about this, so it's not going to sound that amazing. But I do think it was the first thing I thought of. It's like, oh wow, we're going to see some Black Widow backstory, possibly next episode. And let's see, I've even seen clips of a little girl involved, and I would not be surprised if that little girl is either related to Black Widow or Black Widow.
According to Rocket Raccoon, someone calling themselves Rocket Raccoon, so this is a really credible source, here in our chat room, says that it's been confirmed already that that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, they're doing the Black Widow legacy thing. So Dottie, as far as we know, is one of the first members of that Red Room program, and I'm sure they're going to expound on that later with Black Widow. And she was also trained by the Winter Soldier, so we're probably going to get some of that somewhere.
If little girl Black Widow shows up in the next issue, I'm going to be very, very happy.
The next issue.
Next episode, sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a blonde Black Widow in the comics at one point as well?
Yes. It was. I think Greg Rucka created her, and Brian Michael Bendis destroyed her.
He's very good at doing that.
Yeah.
He does it a lot with characters.
Yeah, but it probably took 18 issues.
Well, there's Avengers Annual. It's the one where Luke Cage and Jessica Jones gets married. She gets messed up bad in that one. Yeah, Black Widow is supposed to be around this age, actually. She's about, she was born 40s or early or late 30s or something like that. So she is that old. That little girl might be Natasha, which would be amazing, I think.
I don't know. I mean, they've come right out in the movies and said that the years of the films are the years that we're in right now. So they got to really finagle that if that's how they're doing that.
She's that old. They did a X-Men issue with Captain America and Wolverine rescuing little girl Natasha.
Yeah, in the comics, but in Marvel Cinematic, I don't see him doing that.
No. They said specifically because this issue took place in the 90s. And they were telling this story to Jubilee, and Jubilee is looking at Black Widow, who's standing there, and she's thinking, no way, that's like, blah, 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 blah. That she would be over this many years old. She's supposed to be around 70 or 80.
Yeah, well, in the comics, she's also got like a pseudo super soldier serum, and we've got Cap's blood here, so it's potentially there that they're going to use that to make Natasha.
Okay,
yeah,
they may do it
slowly.
I'm just saying that they won't do it without some kind of an explanation. And given that they already had the slowly or not really aging at all thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe that was supposed to be an allusion to that, also. That could be a thing.
It's possible. I mean, they alluded to like her being not what you think. Yeah, she is in the comics. She's supposed to be like, almost Captain America's age. She's supposed to be around 80.
Yeah, she was doing missions in the 60s and 70s with Bucky for a little while, so she is pretty old.
Guys, I want to go ahead and move on if we can. Let's do some trivia questions real quick and then get our answers here in a little bit. Dan, I know that you didn't write much down, but do you have a trivia question?
I do not.
Okay, Manos.
I do not.
Okay. Wow, we're batting 1,000. Steve.
Well, I've got one.
Come to my rescue, Steve. There we go. Go ahead, man.
All right. In the comics, Howard Stark in the 1950s is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Who is his partner?
Okay, that's cool. Wow, you guys are like mutinying on me. You're like, look, we've decided to dismantle the trivia question segment. We're not going to do that anymore. Captain Logan's off on his own, and he can ask really obvious, stupid questions like this one. My question, I didn't see this episode as especially trivia-worthy, so the one I went with is the one that I imagine is one that I imagine everybody will know, but I'll throw it out anyway. We haven't talked about the Stan Lee cameo, and I'm really happy that nobody brought that up yet. So I can actually ask this question. Stan Lee he sits down right next to Howard Stark, and he asks him for something. What does he ask him for? That's my trivia question. And why don't we answer some questions and comments now from our audience? Let's see. I gotta flip through here really quick. Divid 22. Howard Stark is a handsome man. Okay.
Now we know where Tony gets his looks from.
That's right. Well, and I think he looks. You can definitely see the family resemblance.
It's almost a shame now that we've got Dominic Cooper as his dad instead of recasting Robert Downey Jr. with him.
That's true. He would do a pretty good Tony Stark, I think.
Yeah, he's fantastic as Howard right now, so I could see him doing Tony.
Oh, that's a great point you're making. Sorry, I'm just running through here to see if there's some other cool stuff in here. We've talked. I guess. Well, Farmer Yeti wants to know what we think of the Stan Lee cameo, and that's about all question-wise we're getting here. So, does anyone have any opinion on that?
I liked it.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming because he hasn't had a cameo in S.H.I.E.L.D. from what I've seen so far. I didn't really expect him to be in the TV shows.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to either. Which is weird because he had one of Heroes of all places.
Didn't you? I forgot.
Yeah, he was a bus driver. But yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to see Stan Lee in a period piece like this in the 40s because, of course, he was like in his 20s, actually off the war or coming back from the war.
He just started working at Marvel right after the war. That was when he got into his foot in the door at Timely, I think it was called at the time. So
in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we discovered that the story was he came to them and said, "Can I please have a cameo in this show specifically because it's a period piece and it's the 40s and this is when we started Marvel."
That would be cool.
I could totally see that. Any other last comments that you guys would like to make? Final thoughts before we move on.
It's the best superhero show that I'm watching. I love it. Because I hear people love Constantine, but I'm not watching that, so I can't say. But of the things I'm watching, I like this the best.
Yeah, it's
two totally different things, but they're on the same level. They're both top-notch writing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I liked Constantine, what I've seen of it, as well as Flash. I feel about Gotham, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is good. But, Agent Carter has been rocking it. It's easily the best comic book show that's on right now. I'm
with you. And I'm hoping that, S.H.I.E.L.D. continues to pick up because it was in a good place where we left it, so.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
And they're already starting to make a big deal out of its return, and it's really hard for me to think about that show right now, watching Carter. Like I'm starting to see things about it coming back, and I'm like, I don't know, guys, I don't want to think about it yet until Carter's over, and then I can switch my brains back to that. I'm just glad they're not running simultaneously. That would blow my brains up with everything else I'm doing right now. But it's a good problem to have. We shouldn't complain about too much of this stuff, especially when it's great, like this show has been. So anyway, I guess we will leave it off there. Let's go ahead and answer our trivia questions. At least, two of us. Steve, what was the answer to your?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I forgot.
I look for any excuse to be sarcastic. Steve, what is the answer to your trivia question, sir?
Okay, Howard Stark's partner in S.H.I.E.L.D. was Nathan Richards, Reed Richards' dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And once again, you're making me wish.
Parker's involved at all in that story? Because that would be because the Parker S.H.I.E.L.D. agents thing is awesome. I've always liked that.
I know they interacted once or twice, but I don't think they've ever done anything long term. There's that book where it's essentially just all the characters' parents in S.H.I.E.L.D. doing things.
That's awesome.
Do any of you guys remember what Stan Lee asked Howard Stark for when he sat down at the park bench?
I do.
What is it, Manos?
It was the sports section, right?
Yeah, the sports section. Good job. 3 points. They don't matter.
Yeah!
Anyway, everybody, thanks as always for watching Agent Carter Discussions. We sure appreciate it. We'll be back with you again next week for another rousing episode. I was so excited about how much this one got done, and I can't wait to see where it goes. In fact, real quick, let me say this too, because I meant to say this earlier. We get to the end of the episode, and I had no idea how close we were. Did you guys have that? I didn't realize that the episode was almost was over when it was over, and then it has this really abrupt kind of cool cliffhanger, and I was like, oh man, it's already over? I didn't feel like I was sitting there for 45 minutes, and that is a wonderful feeling when you're watching a TV show and you're not looking at your watch. So I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, thanks again for watching, folks. We sure appreciate it, and we'll see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan, and this was Dan Torrey.
Thanks for watching, guys.
The Real Manos.
Thank you, folks.
And beware the seat, Baxi.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you, folks.